The chameleon who lost his colors. Deep in the heart of the emerald canopy forest lived a young chameleon named Speckle, whose skin could shift through every color of the rainbow. When he was happy, golden yellows danced across his scales. When frightened, he turned pale silver. When angry, deep reds pulsed along his spine. And when content, he displayed the most beautiful array of greens imaginable: forest green, lime green, sage green, each shade flowing into the next like living art. Speckle's color changing was as natural as breathing. In the morning sun, he'd turn warm amber. Against the tree bark, he'd shift to mottled brown. Near the stream, cool blues would ripple across his body. His colors told the story of his day, his feelings and his surroundings in a language more honest than words. One bright afternoon, the forest animals gathered in the great clearing for their monthly community meeting. As Speckle listened to the discussions about seasonal preparations, he felt particularly peaceful and content. Without conscious thought, his skin transformed into the most stunning emerald green, deep, rich, and vibrant, like the heart of the forest itself. "Oh my," gasped Bella the blue jay. "Speckle, you look absolutely magnificent in that green." "Simply stunning," agreed Oliver the owl. "That shade of green is so elegant, so sophisticated." "I wish I could be that beautiful color," sighed Dart the gecko, Speckle's closest friend. For the first time in his life, Speckle became acutely aware of his appearance. He looked down at his emerald scales, noticing how the color seemed to make him look more mature, more impressive than his usual shifting palette. The compliments continued flowing from every direction. "You should stay that color all the time," suggested Flutter the butterfly. "It's so much more refined than all that constant changing." Speckle felt a warm glow of pride that had nothing to do with his natural color responses. Maybe Butterfly was right. Maybe his constant color shifting was childish, unpredictable, even chaotic. This beautiful green made him look distinguished and put together. That very evening, Speckle made a decision that seemed perfectly reasonable to his young mind. He would stay emerald green forever. At first, maintaining the green took only a little concentration. But as days passed, Speckle discovered that forcing his skin to remain one color required constant mental effort. His body naturally wanted to respond to his surroundings and emotions, but he fought against every impulse to change. When he woke in the morning sunlight, his skin tried to shift to golden amber, but Speckle forced it back to green. When Dart told him an exciting joke, his scales attempted to brighten with yellow joy, but he suppressed the change. Even when he felt sad during a lonely afternoon, he prevented the gentle blues that wanted to emerge. The compliments continued for a while. Other animals praised his consistency and maturity. But Speckle began to notice that the praise felt different, now more distant, less personal. Rainbow, an elderly chameleon who lived in the ancient oak tree, watched Speckle's struggles with growing concern. "Young one," she said gently one day, "I've noticed you haven't changed colors in weeks. Are you feeling well?" "I'm feeling perfectly fine," Speckle replied, though the strain of maintaining his green was giving him a constant headache. "I've decided that green is my best color. Why should I confuse everyone with constant changes?" Rainbow's own skin rippled through concerned purples and worried grays as she spoke. "But dear Speckle, our colors are how we communicate, how we adapt, how we stay safe. They're not meant to be controlled, they're meant to be natural." "That's old-fashioned thinking," Speckle said dismissively, though his forced green flickered slightly with uncertainty. "Consistency is better than chaos." As weeks turned into a month, the constant effort of maintaining his artificial color began taking its toll. Speckle felt exhausted all the time, as if he were holding his breath continuously. His natural responses felt rusty and distant, like muscles that hadn't been used in too long. Worse still, his relationships began to suffer. Dart the gecko grew increasingly frustrated, trying to understand his friend's moods. "Are you angry at me?" Dart asked after Speckle had been unusually quiet during their morning hunt for insects. "No, why would you think that?" Speckle replied, his green remaining unchanged despite feeling genuinely confused. "Well, you look exactly the same as when you're happy, or sad, or excited, or anything else. I used to be able to tell how you were feeling just by looking at you. Now it's like talking to a painted rock." Even the other forest animals began to notice something was off. Speckle's bright green stood out awkwardly against brown tree bark, made him glaringly visible against gray rocks, and looked strangely artificial in the shifting light of the forest canopy. What had once seemed sophisticated now appeared forced and unnatural. But Speckle had invested so much effort in maintaining his green that admitting it was a mistake felt impossible. Instead, he became more isolated, spending long hours alone where his inappropriate coloring wouldn't draw attention. One afternoon, exhausted from the constant strain of controlling his colors, Speckle decided to rest on a fallen log near the forest's edge. The log was covered in rough, dark brown bark, and as he settled down for a nap, his body instinctively tried to shift to protective brown camouflage. But Speckle, even in his drowsiness, forced his skin back to green. Against the dark bark, his emerald color made him stand out like a bright beacon visible from a considerable distance to any creature that might be looking for an easy meal. Shadow the snake had been looking for exactly such an opportunity. The large predator spotted Speckle's vivid green form from across the clearing and began moving with silent, deadly purpose. In the natural world, survival often depends on the ability to blend in, and Speckle had made himself the most obvious target in the entire forest. As Shadow drew closer, some deep instinct made Speckle open his eyes. The sight of the approaching snake sent a bolt of pure terror through his system. Every fiber of his being screamed at him to change colors, to blend with the bark, to become invisible, to save his life. But something terrible had happened during his weeks of forced control. He had forgotten how to change colors naturally. His body tried to respond to the mortal danger, but the pathways between his fear and his skin had been blocked for so long that they barely functioned. Speckle concentrated desperately, straining to shift to brown, but his skin only managed a sickly yellowish green that made him even more visible. Shadow was now just feet away, coiled and ready to strike. In that moment of absolute terror, with death approaching and nowhere to run, something inside Speckle finally snapped. All his artificial control, all his forced consistency, all his stubborn determination to stay green, everything shattered at once. His skin exploded into frantic color changes. Green to brown to gray to mottled bark pattern, shifting and flowing faster than ever before. His natural camouflage instincts, suppressed for so long, roared back to life with desperate intensity. Within seconds, Speckle had achieved perfect camouflage against the fallen log. He became so perfectly matched to the bark that he seemed to disappear entirely. Shadow, confused by his prey's sudden vanishing act, searched the area for several minutes before slithering away in frustration. Speckle remained motionless for nearly an hour, his skin continuing to shift and adjust to provide perfect camouflage. As his fear gradually subsided, waves of different emotions rolled across his scales, relief in silver, gratitude in gold, and finally, understanding in gentle blue. For the first time in weeks, Speckle felt truly comfortable in his own skin. When he finally made his way back to the main part of the forest, he found Dart waiting anxiously near their usual meeting spot. "Speckle!" Dart exclaimed with relief. "I was worried when you didn't show up for evening hunting. Are you—" He stopped mid-sentence, staring at his friend with amazement. Speckle's skin was flowing through a beautiful cascade of colors, the deep blues of relief, the warm golds of happiness at seeing his friend, and even flickers of embarrassed pink as he realized how foolish he had been. "You're changing colors again," Dart said softly, his own gecko eyes bright with joy. You look like yourself for the first time in weeks. I almost died today, Speckle admitted, his skin rippling with the remembered fear. I forgot how to camouflage myself because I was so busy trying to stay green. My natural abilities saved my life, but only barely. Rainbow appeared from behind a nearby tree, her own skin displaying gentle, supportive pastels. And what have you learned from this experience, young one? Speckle's colors shifted thoughtfully. Deep purples of contemplation mixed with honest oranges of self-reflection. I learned that trying to be something I'm not made me weaker, not stronger. My color changing isn't a flaw to control, it's a gift to embrace. From that day forward, Speckle never tried to force his colors again. He let his skin tell the honest story of his feelings and surroundings, shifting naturally through the full spectrum of his emotions and environment. Other animals came to appreciate this authenticity far more than they had ever admired his artificial green. When he was happy, his golden joy was infectious. When he was scared, his silver vulnerability invited comfort from friends. When he was excited, his bright yellows made everyone around him smile. And when he felt that deep contentment he had once tried to capture permanently in green, the emerald that naturally emerged was far more beautiful than anything he had ever forced. Dart was particularly relieved to have his communicative friend back. Now I always know how you're really feeling, he said gratefully. It makes our friendship so much deeper. Speckle discovered that his natural color changing was more than just honest communication. It was also practical. He could hide from danger, signal to friends across distances, and adapt to any environment the forest presented. His authentic self was not only more genuine, but also more capable than any artificial persona he could create. Years later, when young chameleons in the forest began to feel self-conscious about their changing colors, Speckle would share his story. He would tell them about the day he almost died, trying to be someone he wasn't, and how embracing his true nature had saved his life and enriched all his relationships. Your ability to change and adapt, he would say, his skin shifting through encouraging colors, is not a weakness to be controlled. It's your power to be celebrated. Moral, authenticity, and adaptability are strengths, not flaws to be hidden.